YouTube, how's it going? The Goat House is back. Today we're ranking NFL defensive linemen, top 32, going from 32 to 1. This is a stacked position group in the league here. There's a lot of good players that I wasn't able to rank in the top 32. Again, this is for the upcoming season, all these rankings that we have done, so essentially they are predictions. Can't wait to break this down. It's going to be full of nose tackles, defensive tackles, 3-4 ends, so defensive linemen. The edge rushers will be separate. Sometimes that confuses people. Edge rushers or 4-3 defensive ends, 3-4 outside linebackers. Those will be separate. A lot of good players to break down here. Make sure you like, subscribe, all kinds of ranking videos, prediction videos on the channel. Check it out. Here's our Twitter, just constantly talking with you guys about what's coming up. You know, sneak peeks. We got polls on here. Keeping you updated on NFL news as well. So check it out. There's a link in the description and comments every single video. So here we go from the 32 to 25. We got Poona Ford at 32. There's a good group of guys here. It shows how stacked this position group is. Some of the most underrated players in the NFL are in this video because they are defensive linemen. Poona Ford's been getting better. A guy that can move around a little bit, plugs gaps, stops the run. Been, upgrading in terms of getting pressure on the quarterback recently. Big role. They don't have Jarrett Reed anymore. It felt like Quentin Jefferson a year before was a big loss. Now Jarrett Reed's gone. Poona Ford really got to step up, but he has been stepping up. Eddie Goldman back from opt-out. The Bears nose tackle. A guy that's very key to help stopping the run. The Bears a little shaky stopping the run last year. So getting Eddie Goldman back, which he's supposed to show up to camp as well. He's been missing for a little bit, so that's good that he's coming back. But that'll help stopping the run a little bit. So definitely, not a long list of nose tackles that made the list because, again, we're ranking all defensive linemen besides edge rushers. So Eddie Goldman finds his way on the list. Michael Brockers went from the Rams, obviously, to the Lions. A pretty damn good trade for the Lions. They, basically didn't trade any value away and got a good, solid defensive tackle in Michael Brockers who can get pressure. How will he be without Aaron Donald? That is the big question for everyone. I still think he's a very good defensive tackle. Maybe he's a little better if we're predicting a season if Aaron Donald's next to him, of course. Sheldon Richardson now on the Vikings. Was on the Vikings, went to the Browns. Now back on the Vikings. Going to be interesting. I think, he could be ranked much higher because I think he's very talented, especially in a very important way of him. He gets pressure on the quarterback. That it's interior pressure is game-changing. But the Vikings got a load of defensive linemen. He, I think, will be used in an important way, but probably only on obvious passing downs. But the last time he played for Minnesota, he got a good amount of pressure. So that's what they brought him in for. Danico Autry going from the Colts to the Titans. Played more of an end spot for the in a 4-3 for the Colts. Going to play a more proper role, 3-4 end for the Tennessee Titans, but he even played pretty well with the Colts, obviously getting quarterback pressure, getting sacks. So I think he fits that role there with Tennessee Titans. So I think he can continue to be that productive getting after the quarterback. Don't forget about DJ Reader. He was hurt last year. The Bengals signed him in that last offseason. Before that, played for the Texans. The Texans' run defense went completely downhill, we saw this year without DJ Reader. So obviously he's a big-time run stopper. He's not going to get too much pressure. He's still young. He still can get better in that category. But there's a nose tackle that makes the list because he's a dominant run stuffer. Just needs to stay healthy here. Michael Pierce, pretty much in the same category. We didn't see him last year because he opted out, went from the Ravens to the Vikings. This is just a wall of a guy in there, a dominant run-stopping nose tackle. So he'll be in there with a couple other solid players with the Minnesota Vikings defensive line. So him and Reader kind of in the same boat. And actually another nose tackle here in JAVON HARGRAVE, where the Eagles signed him last year. I think it's a nose tackle that actually can get a little bit more pressure than some of these other guys. That's what separates Hargrave from Pierce, Reader, Goldman, guys like that. You see what's around him, too, on that Eagles defensive line, whether it's the starters or the rotation. So I think that helps him out a bit as well. So I think I'm expecting some pretty good things from JAVON HARGRAVE here with the Eagles this season. Moving on to the next group of guys here. Derek Brown, who was a rookie last year, based on last year and some of these other talented guys, maybe he doesn't rank as high as 24, but he'll get there. He's going to keep on climbing. It's a guy that can move around a bit as well. Can almost play, could play D-tackle, could almost play nose because how strong he is, how dominant he is stopping the run. Where he needs to pick it up a little bit, get a little more quarterback pressure like we saw at Auburn. I think he'll get there for the Carolina Panthers. So he's a guy that can continue to climb. Deron Payne, who is the Washington football team's nose tackle, makes the list. Still extremely young and getting better. A nose tackle that can stop the run, plus get some pressure, and I think he's getting better in those categories, so a young guy that's continuing to get better. Shelby Harris, 22. I talked about some of the most underrated players are on this list, and Shelby Harris is one of them. Not going to light up the stat sheet. I mean, he's a pass deflection machine. I think he's one of those presence guys as well. Will stop the run. Another guy that can, switch around spots a little bit in the interior defensive line. Another extremely underrated guy, David Onyemata from the Saints. Another one, big piece of stopping that run for the Saints. The Saints lost some guys in there, but they made sure, well, at least we got Onyemata. They can't let him go, of course, which really wasn't a option or anything, not like he was a free agent, but that was actually, believe it or not, I thought was more of the important piece of that interior defensive line. Dominant run stopper there. Jonathan Allen at 20, maybe a little underwhelming last year. You expect more with what's around him. I think we can get more because what's around him, because of his talent as well. It's a guy that can get pressure after the quarterback for a defensive lineman here. If he was on a 3-4 defense, he would play end. He's playing D tackle for Washington. Vita Vea, another young nose tackle here of the Buccaneers. You see the difference with the Bucs with and without him, just very important for stopping the run. Another guy that can grow a little bit and will getting pressure after the quarterback. Jarrett Reed now on the Chiefs, I think extremely, extremely underrated. I'm shocked the Seahawks let him go, but he wanted more money. Seahawks tend to be a little cheap when that is the case. It seems like, looking at the past. I think he's extremely underrated. He's going to play with the Chiefs, play with Chris Jones, play with Frank Clark maybe. He's got some off-field issues, but mainly with Chris Jones. Reed gets quarterback pressure from the inside, and that kind of goes unnoticed. He stops the run at a very solid level as well. I think he's still getting better. You see him in big games, big moments, third downs. At the end of last year, he's really standing out. I think this is a hell of a ball player. The Chiefs got a steal in him. DALVIN Tomlinson, you see him pictured on the Giants. He's now at the Minnesota Vikings. I think he's going to have more production going forward. He's been solid because of his role. You see him going with the Vikings. They're going to use him as a 3-technique defensive tackle, which is a shade outside of the guard, and that will result in more pass rush production. But I do think when they bring Sheldon Richardson in, or when they use Sheldon Richardson, he'll play over the guard or even over the center at times. So I think it gives you a chance at more production, gives Tomlinson a chance at more production, but he's going to be so important to that team with his role. So I think it's a guy that's going to continue to get better here. He's at 17. 16 and 13. I got Calais Campbell at 16. I do think Calais Campbell, very good, is probably declining a little bit. Plays 3-4 end for the Baltimore Ravens. Obviously is aging, but still very, very solid defensive lineman. The Ravens' best defensive lineman there. Main job is to get pressure from that 3-4 end spot. Dexter Lawrence hasn't really ranked here yet, but again, this is for the upcoming season. I think Dexter Lawrence is going to be an absolute stud. See Dalvin Tomlinson out of there. Bigger role for Dexter Lawrence. Also have Leonard Williams on that line as well. But Dexter Lawrence, I loved out of Clemson. This was a pure dominant run stuffer that we knew was going to be very good stopping the run right away, and he was. And I saw on tape at Clemson, I saw signs of him being actually with a lot of upside in terms of getting interior pressure, and that's starting to come here. I think we see a big time breakout season from Dexter Lawrence here at the Giants. Ark Armstead, a little disappointing last year, a little underwhelming. I think the injuries around him played a factor for sure. Having guys like Bosa in there, we'll see. Maybe missing Buckner as well could have played a part, but it's another presence guy. I think he's very important to this 49ers defense because he plays almost a defensive end role, even lined up against the tackle as well. So sometimes he looks like an edge rusher. Sometimes they'll kick him inside, play like a 3 technique with D Ford or whoever it may be. I know they bring in Abukum, rushing outside of him with Bosa on the opposite side. So this is a guy that is very, very versatile. We'll see him align in different spots. So that's where his importance is. He was dominant 2 years ago. 2 years ago, absolutely dominant, better than 14. Last year, a little underwhelming. So we'll see where he comes into play. Kenny Clark is my highest rated nose tackle on this list at 13 here. He's not just a nose tackle, though, can move around. He needs to stay healthy as some minor injuries pop up. But this guy's a wall. If you're running in that A gap, it's like running into an absolute wall here. A dominant run stopper who has shown in the past that he can get good interior pressure as well, but still young. I just think this is the best nose tackle in football, and he can do more than just be a nose tackle. So he comes in at 13. Next group of guys here, I got Akeem Hicks at 12. Maybe slightly declining a little bit. It was like about 3 years ago. Was absolutely dominant. Played like an elite defensive tackle. It's another one of those presence guys. Because he's not going to light up the stat sheet, but you see when he's in the game and when he's out of the game, there is a major major difference in the Chicago Bears defense. So that says a lot about Akeem Hicks. Dominant run stuffer, not much getting by him. He needs to clean up the penalties, though, too. I noticed that last year. Had some stupid penalties, so he's got to help his team a little bit more there. Jeffrey Simmons, another young stud defensive tackle on the rise. Remember, this was a top-tier prospect out of Mississippi State. The reason why he didn't get drafted like a top-tier prospect because of the injury. He's been pretty healthy, and we see him dominate last year. He was really the only guy that was a factor on the Titans defensive line. They dropped their pass rushers and coverage. He had no help on the defensive line. He was still pretty damn dominant, and he's getting better because he's young. Now they add Autry. They add Bud Dupree as an edge rusher. So Jeffrey Simmons is going to continue. This guy is a top 5 defensive tackle in the making here. Stephon Tuitt at 10. We see what happens when Stephon Tuitt stays healthy. The past has been, we know he's good, but he's always hurt. Stays healthy last year. Dominant production for sure. The key for him is getting that pass rush as that 3-4 end for the Steelers 3-4 defense, and he did that last year. So let's see if he can continue to stay healthy because he is a dominant top 10 defensive lineman here. Fletcher Cox at number 9. Another guy that is slightly declining maybe because the last 2 years hasn't been that elite Fletcher Cox that we're used to, but still dominant. I have him in the top 10, number 9, so still very dominant, still a presence of a defensive lineman here. Can stop the run, can get pressure, can align at the 3 technique, can align face up with the guard as well. So still a dominant player. Last 2 years, maybe a little less than what we would expect from Fletcher Cox, but again, still very good. Moving on, next group of guys here. I got J.J. Watt at 8. Tough one to rank because he's declined a little bit over the last few years, so that makes you want to knock him down a little bit. He has injury concern. It's no secret, so that makes you want to knock him down. But going to the Cardinals, playing 3-4 end, rushing outside of him, Chandler Jones, who will be with the edge rushers, and they got a couple guys that can rotate in at the other spot, going from what the Texans had, what the Cardinals had. So that makes me want to boost him up a little bit because, that can get him going. He's hungry, to be on that good team, which he is, and to go for that Super Bowl or playoff wins here. So if he stays healthy, he's a top 8 guy here. It's going to be fun to watch him. Some people are a little confused because, they view J.J. Watt as an edge rusher. He's going to play 3-4 end for the Cardinals. The edge rushers, Chandler Jones, and obviously they have a few guys. Gardick was standing out last year. A few other guys that can rush from that other spot, but he's with the defense line for that reason. Cameron Hayward, aging, but is he really declining? Could we see a little bit of a dip this year? It doesn't really look like it based on what he's been doing. I do think some of the younger guys, some of the guys going into their prime kind of jumped him going this season a little bit, even though there's not much splitting them up. So that's why he's at 7. But the Steelers defensive tackle there, opposite of the defensive end, 3-4 defensive end, Stephon Tuitt just has been very consistent and dominant. Deforest Buckner at 6. Saw what his presence, his play did for the Colts defense, really upgraded the defense in general. Interior pressure was a game changer. We didn't really view, going into the season, we didn't really view the Colts secondary as one of the best in football, but it played a lot better because of guys like DeForest Buckner. I wish he did have a little more help, on that defensive line. It does feel like he's got to carry it for this season. I do like Kwity Paye. It kind of gives me some Buckner Armstead vibes, Armstead being kind of Paye, for when Buckner was on the 49ers. So that gets me really excited. But they're asking a lot of the rookie. But yeah, I do think Buckner, he could use some more help. It does look like he has the help for the future, though. That's the good thing for sure. So he comes in at 6. Grady Jarrett at 5. Really won't show on the stat sheet, but he was absolutely dominant. I mean, you watch the Falcons' defense. There's those games where they've really struggled in the past. Really struggled. Looked like one of the worst defenses in football. Even though that wasn't the case late last year. I thought they were playing well late last year. But look at those games. It's just a disaster. But Grady Jarrett is still balling. Let's run away from Grady Jarrett. Let's stay away from Grady Jarrett's offenses we're doing because he's an absolute force, getting double teamed like crazy. I think he's getting better. I think it's only a matter of time till the stats show it as well. That's why you really can't focus on the stats because he's getting pressure. He's a disruptor in there as well. His presence is definitely felt. So he comes in at number 5. Around the top 4, might surprise some people with some of these, but again, this is for this upcoming season. I got Leonard Williams at 4. Man, Leonard Williams coming out of USC, so much hype. Loved him as a prospect. The first time he stepped into the Jets, as a rookie, not a whole lot of expectations, but this is going to be a big time player. He played the part. That's what we expected. But then all of a sudden he went downhill. I don't know what happened. And then the Giants trade for him. It's a little disappointing. Last year, something happened where this is the Leonard Williams I've expected. The second half of last season was ridiculous from Leonard Williams. This guy plays 3-4 end for the Giants. He gets pressure like he's supposed to. He helps stop the run. This guy He's an absolute disruptor. I'm banking on him playing like he did last year, specifically how he got going late last year. It didn't feel like a fluke at all. Sometimes that happens a lot, but it just felt like he figured something out. He was a problem. He was a problem. The Giants, as good as their defense was, what's the most important thing? Pass rush. Where do you get pass rush most from? You get it from the edge rush spot. Giants a little bit lacking in those spots. Leonard Williams, a 3-4 end. He's not an edge rush guy, but that defense was so good because of guys like Leonard Williams there. So I'm hoping he continues on to where he left off. I got big Quinn Williams at number 3. I'm hyped about Quinn Williams and Robert Saleh's defense here. So this is going to surprise people because he hasn't ranked 3 based on the pass. He did pick it up last year, but this is going to be fun. Quinn Williams in this defense. He was an elite prospect for me a few years ago, so that alone tells you, okay, if that evaluation is right, it makes sense that he's going to break out here. But you throw in, again, Robert Saleh's defense, what he does with defensive linemen like Quinn Williams, it's going to be fantastic. He's going to play all over the place. We're going to see him. We might see him rush over the tackle in the B gap, 3 technique over the guard. He can play nose tackle if you want him to. See him at Alabama. That's why he was so great. He played pretty much everywhere. He can do everything. He can do everything equally as effective. It's gonna be fun. It's gonna be real fun here. A young player that is still getting better. And Aaron Donald and Chris Jones might have some competition here. Not this year. Aaron Donald and Chris Jones. If you don't have them 1 and 2, I don't hate to be harsh. I don't know what you're doing, though, really. I think everyone's in agreement. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. But Quinn Williams, for the future, he's coming. He's coming for sure. So really excited about that. And they had Sheldon Rankins, who almost made this list. I just need to see him stay healthy. If he's healthy, he's very good. He's very good. You just need to see him stay healthy. Chris Jones, too. Dominant run stopper and crazy in terms of his interior pressure. When the Chiefs have been so dominant defensively, I think it starts actually with Chris Jones. Interior pressure created quarterback hurries, which created problems, which created plays being made for guys like Tyrann Mathieu and company. There's multiple guys there. So Chris Jones is where it starts here. Super Bowl victory, go back a couple years ago. Was a big piece and won't show on the stat sheet. And he's actually could be getting better. They're going to do some unique things this year, too. Remember, they brought in Jarrett Reed. Remember, they have Derek Nottie, who's their nose tackle. Jarrett Reed's purely a defensive tackle. Chris Jones is that good where they can actually put him at defensive end at times, and he's going to get some good pressure. So he might be too strong for those tackles sometimes, but mainly an interior player where he's already dominant. Aaron Donald, not a surprise, number 1. One of the freakier, top-tier elite talents in all of football here. Michael Brocker's getting it taken away from him, but that's not going to change anything, so it could actually make him look even better that he's really got to carry that interior defensive line, and he's going to do it. He's going to do it. Facing the double teams, and I think the get off is what stands out because that just kind of takes away the double teams. You can plan to double team a guy like that, but sometimes you can't even attempt it almost, even though you're going to attempt it if you know what I mean. So equally as effective. Ryan, I don't have to sit here and explain Aaron Donald, but. And the Rams building around, I don't know about around him, but throughout that roster, making the roster better could make a guy like Aaron Donald stand out even more when they maybe go more of the distance, if that is the case. So I do have that one. Again, the 1 and 2 should not be a surprise at all. I think everybody should have that. I know 3-4 will probably surprise people because Quinn Williams has not played to that yet. I think he will. Leonard Williams played at this level. Not a huge sample size, but it wasn't really a surprise because this is what Leonard Williams was supposed to be, So a lot of good players. I talked about Sheldon Rankins, another one look out for. Barely missed the list. Ed Oliver waiting for him. A little underwhelming season, but remember he was playing out of position at Houston. Goes to the Bills, correct position, defensive tackle position, and he's getting better. It's not it's nothing to be alarmed about if he's struggling a little bit. He'll pick it up. The Bills got a couple good guys in there that just missed the list there. Ndamukong Suh, another presence type guy, just missed the list. So there's a lot of good defensive tackles that it was hard keeping them out because they're such good players. And I ranked a long list of players here. So these are the game changers. Interior pressure can just change the game so much. And there's so many good ones, so many underrated ones. So love ranking these players because they're so damn good. Let me know your rankings, your thoughts in the comments. If you follow us on Twitter, we're always talking there. So make sure you do that. Link down below for anything you need just like that. But yeah, don't forget to smash that like button, subscribe. Be much, much appreciated. That's going to do it for this one. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.